necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. It's now time for us to take a look at the stories on the front pages of our newspapers. This morning, we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper, where we have the story on security. It says Boko Haram attacks escalate in Borno. It has the riders that says 252 persons killed in August, according to a report. Attacks heightened after repentant terrorist returned to bush. Goza Emir. You have DHQ plans review of operations on page 4. Above the lead story, Ondo PDP, APC bicker over Akeredolu's whereabouts on page 14. Nigeria exports 146.1 billion naira worth of raw cashew in 6 months. That's on page 24. Gaza invasion could lead to genocide. Arab League, AU there on page 8. You also have Liberia's election. ECOWAS warns against premature declarations of victory on page 10. Northern leaders raise over 2 billion naira for reconstruction of Zaria collapsed mosque. You also have Tinubu convenes FEC today, 49 days after inaugural meeting. These are the main stories on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
And then let's move on to the Punch newspaper. The lead story is the federal government may spend 3.27 trillion naira on palliatives and loans. And the riders attached to the story, the first one said 15 million households to get 1.13 trillion naira for 3 months and 125 billion naira for MSMEs and others. PWDs, as people with disabilities demand more palliatives from Sanwo-Olu. Kwara IDPs get relief materials. A story you can read on page 7, 19 and 29, the Punch newspaper. And above the lead story, we have Tinubu swears in new ministers as FEC meets today. Page 8 has details of that. And Naira under pressure, Nigeria may seek dollar loan. That's coming from the International Monetary Fund. There, page 30 has details of the story. And then fuel import got 843 billion naira. Stakeholders lament inactive refineries. You can see a headshot of Kyari there. That statement is from him or the NNPC. Of course, you get details of that on page 2. The bottom strip, we see a pictorial of a nightclub there. It said nightclub workers face prosecution for assaulting La Sepa officials. Page 6 has details. Editors invite Tinubu to discuss economic crisis at Uyo conference. Page 8 has more. And Pastor, 3 others caught with human skull in Ogun. Very pathetic story there, but page 4 has details of that story. And then Israel, Hamas as a kicker. Pope, China, UK demand end to civilian casualties. Page 19 has details of that. And that's all the stories and the front of the Punch this morning.
All right. Now let's take a look at the next paper, The Nation newspaper this morning, where you have the rider, the lead story rather of the paper. It says, Tinubu, why Supreme Court can't admit Atiku's CSU evidence. Still on the certificate saga hanging there. President files reply to ex-VP bid. BBC insists CSU certificate not forged. You also have above the masthead, economy takes center stage as FEC meets. It's time to fix Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway, says Akpabio. Nigerian equities post third highest global returns. Experts to examine economy at editor's annual confab. Also, you have U.S. to avert escalation of Israel-Hamas war, where Boakai neck and neck in Liberia poll. 30 drowned, 167 missing in Congo boat accident. Well, these are the main stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper today.
Let's take a look at The Guardian now. The first story will be taken says firms scale down production, opt for trade over FX and income concerns. Red Page 6 has that, and then there's an information about disposable incomes and FX challenges force manufacturers to adjust business models. You get details of that and that information on the front page with the numbers, and you get information like the total number of jobs created as of 2022 and taxes paid by manufacturers. All of that you get in that information column there just below the lead story. And then imposters groan over 200% surge in duty amid a naira fluctuation. Page 3 has details of that. And then anxiety as MTEF yet to arrive National Assembly 2 months after deadline. Page 3 has unpacking of all of the anxiety and the National Assembly saga there. And then telecoms operators may sue banks over 120 billion naira United States dollar debt. All right, get details on page 4. And then just below that, we have Netanyahu adamant vows to demolish Hamas amid global condemnation. Very sad development. The news is on page 6. And heal the environment, eliminate gas flaring. That's the editorial page there of The Guardian. Page 2 has details. And just below that, written in small caps, we have Khan blames poor leadership for Nigeria's exclusion from UN Council. All right, get all of the details on page 9. That's the stories at the front page of The Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right. The Nigerian News Direct leads with a story that says FGI's $1.5 billion World Bank loan to finance budget deficit. You also have above the news, the masthead, it's 100% loyalty to Governor Abiodun or nothing if Ogun must develop. That's Debasco tells appointees. Oshun APC Adeleke fight dirty over FG's fuel subsidy palliative. You also have above other stories there. Wale Edun emerges as chairman of African Governors Forum. FCTA directors hail Tinubu. Wike over creation of Civil Service Commission. Grit by Obari Gomba wins $100,000 NLNG prize for literature. These are the main stories on the News Direct.
Let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune now. The lead story has a kicker on Bayelsa, Kogi and Imo elections. PDP, LP disagree with APC over INEC's assurance. A lot of writers attached to this story, I must say. The first one says opposition parties raise doubt over e-transmission of results. We are still traumatized by February poll experience. That's coming from the Labour Party. Trust INEC at your peril. Okorie, Abga, one candidates. We want a SAC result declaration not electronically transmitted. That's coming from the People's Democratic Party, PDP. And the last one says INEC will do what it promised. That's coming from the APC. And this story you can read on page 22 in the Nigerian Tribune. At the masthead, we have World Food Day. Nigerians groan over persistent increase in price of food and seek government support for farmers to boost production. Experts suggest ways to attain food sufficiency. So today is the World Food Day, and this story is resurfacing. You get details of this on page 6 this morning in the Nigerian Tribune. Then a kicker that says FX restrictions removal on 43 items. Policy change will promote orderliness, professional conduct. That's coming from Lagos Chamber of Industry there, page 7, and he has a rider that says the new policy will force down price of cement productions. Page 7, like I said, has details of that story. Reps take delivery of new SUVs and vehicles at work twos. Reps leadership say to the rep members. Page 20 has accommodated that story. Then the bottom strip, okay, let's take a look at the side. Below the lead story, we have Kaduna appeal. Obasani PDP candidate lists 38 errors by tribunal. You might want to get details of that story on page 23. Then on annual editor's confab, economic expert to interrogate state of economy, and Tinubu expected to declare conference open in Uyo. That is on page 25. Ondo APC PDP trade words over Keredulu's absence and planned mayhem. Page 28 has details of that story. And as a kicker on CSU, Tinubu gives reason why Supreme Court can't accept Atiku's fresh evidence. It says alteration in my name, well documented. Atiku tells Tinubu, and says revelations at U.S. court, deposition tip of the iceberg. Page 22 has details of that story. That's all on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning, and it seems to be a lot.
All right. So on the Blueprint newspaper this morning, we have the lead story where it has a kicker there, certificate controversy. It says Tinubu fights back, alleges forgery against Atiku, says ex-VP's school certificates bear Kojoli. Siddiq, don't drag me into forgery arena, Atiku replies. You also have editors confirm Tinubu to declare event open, expert interrogate nation's economy. You also have above that, reject social media regulation bill, Serap tells Akpabio Abbas. EFCC arraigns Mama Boko Haram, 2 others for 150 million naira fraud. Ijaw youth Lord Tinubu, NNPC on Tantita pipeline contract renewal. So these are the main stories on the Blueprint newspaper.
Let's take a look at the last national daily we'll be taking this morning. It's the Daily Times newspaper. And at the masthead, we have federal government must slow down borrowing amidst fresh $1.5 billion loan facility, ranked 4th on World Bank borrowers list. All right, that story started on the front page. Continue reading further when you take a look at the Daily Times. And then the lead story says, Jakpa, as a kicker, how we walked outside Nigeria, returned penniless. That's coming from youths there. Some of them said, I'll never go back. Any job in Nigeria better. And another writer said, we escaped death by whiskers. And the last one says, I returned with illness, not money. Wow, a great revelation there. You start reading on the front page and continue on page 4 this morning. And then we have alleged billionaire drug baron now in NDLEA net. Another arrested suspect offers $3,000 bribe for freedom. You continue reading further, but the story has started on the front page. The bottom strip we have on the Enugu gubernatorial race, CSOs demand investigation of public officers NYSC certificates. All right, page 5 has details of that. And then reps to ensure FCC equitably spreads federal government employment. Page 10 has details of that story. And then plugging fiscal holes in a choked economy. Is Adeni up for it? That's a question that maybe this report tends to answer. Page 5 of the Daily Times newspaper has details of that story. And then Bayelsa, Kogi, Imo polls will reject any results transmission that is not electronic. And that's coming from the PDP. At this point, we've taken all the national dailies. Some of them that will be taken this morning. But let's take a breather. We will return after this short break. Stay with us.
Are you interested in the latest news and developments in Nigerian politics, policy, governance, and other critical national issues? Look no further than Daily Politics on Trust TV. Our panel of experts and key people in government provide in-depth analysis and commentary on the biggest stories in Nigerian politics.
And 33.3 million Nigerians are suffering from multidimensional poverty.
Is a much calmer Buhari than the Buhari who was in the khaki uniform.
Naira to Naira X rate is higher anywhere in the world. The Naira is higher than dollar exchange rate. So you want to tell central bank governor you're doing, you must do it fast.
Number of casualties we have had, we shouldn't have had. Security as far as Nigeria is concerned, we have wronged.
From the inner workings of government to the latest on legislation, rule of law, implementation, and democracy, we have you covered. Don't miss out on the latest political news and discussion. Tune in to Daily Politics, weekdays on Trust TV, your source for reliable and unbiased coverage of Nigerian politics.
When a situation where you find that they look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Of course, we've gotten through the national dailies this morning and what they're saying, but we need to get perspective on this, what the stories are saying. And our reviewer is already in the studio. Now let's get to it, as we will be introducing our guest this morning. And now we have our guest, who is gallantly seated here. There's a lot to unpack, I must say. The papers are saying so much this morning. Suleiman Ubagaya is the CEO, Sky Limit Media Group editor and former deputy president, Nigerian Guild of Editors. And he joins us this morning. Good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, so like I said, there's a lot to unpack this morning. I would like to start from the Japa syndrome. And of course, okay, let's start with let's start in-house, and then we get, the story is very interesting. I wanted to get into it, so I don't skip it. But let's start with Daily Trust, where we have Boko Haram attacks escalating in Borno, where we felt like peace and normalcy was gradually returning to the state. What's your take on this development?
It is very tragic that how many years after Boko Haram has started attacking the state, you know, and in spite of massive investment made by the Nigerian state or the Nigerian government, these attacks have continued to, you know, deepen. Of course, there is the issue of the need for the government or the security services to have a holistic review of the repentant bandits matter, because this particular issue of escalation of attacks in Borno is occasioned by what is believed to be the return of a repentant bandit, terrorists, back to the Sambisa forest. You see, the issue about repentant terrorists is that, you know, it's like having an in-house enemy or an internal enemy. Someone who returns to you, gets to know about your operational secrets, and getting back to the bush to leak those secrets to the enemies of the state. And of course, leveraging on that to gain undue advantage over you. So I think the government, or in particular the security services, owe it a duty to have a holistic review of the repentant bandits issue. I am aware of the fact that some of the repentant bandits have remained repentant. You know, they really have repented and have been fully integrated back into the society. But there are many of them, just like this particular person. The Emir of Goza is very clear that the attacks deepened only after that particular bandit returned to the trenches, you know. So for me, the government really needs to do something as quickly as possible about making sure those repentant terrorists do not have the opportunity to return to the enemies.
And this is quite complicated, really, because in one breath, do you say then that, you know, this window that government has created for people who perhaps were coerced into joining, or people who are willing to make a U-turn and decide not to go in that direction anymore. You can't say that government should close that window, but again, how rigorous should the whole process be, and what measures can we take to ensure that we do not compromise, the strategies and all the efforts put in to end the conflict?
Certainly, nobody will advocate for that window to be completely closed. It is all a matter of strategy. Just as you also suggested, the strategy should be strengthened. I mean, making sure only the right kind of people. Some of them surrender simply because of pressure. When they realize they have nowhere to push back to, they simply surrender. Not because they are remorseful, not because they are really repentant. It's just because they've been pushed to the wall and there is nowhere else to go. So that's why some of them simply surrender.
We've also heard stories of people who just come and say, well, we've surrendered, but they don't surrender the arms. They don't surrender the fighting equipment,
exactly.
And all.
Exactly. So that's the more reason why I think the security services should discountenance the attitude of just bandying the figures. We've had situations where you will hear that, okay, up to 1,000 or even thousands of terrorists have surrendered and they are now repentant. It's like some elements in the security services are only after the figures. We should not be after the figures, even if it is just 1 or 2 persons that are fully and genuinely repentant. Let's go with that, rather than saying, okay, 1,000 have repented, and using that as a kind of achievement. Of course, it's an achievement, but let it be real, let it be genuine. Let's not be deceived, because having an internal enemy is a very profound thing. You'll be an internal enemy, gets to know your secrets, and like I said earlier, he reveals those secrets to his former colleagues, who he is now back to, and before you know it, exactly. So
okay.
You are familiar.
I want us to shift from that story now. It appears that we are experiencing some kind of certificate forgery galore in the country. The Blueprint newspaper is reporting that Tinubu is fighting back, is alleging forgery against Atiku Abubakar, who is a candidate of the People's Democratic Party. And also, we've heard the Lamidi Apapa faction of the Labour Party come out to say that their candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, they are also accusing him of certificate forgery, saying that some of his documents does not, align with some of the information he provided and so on. So, what do you make of all this?
For me, it is all up to we Nigerians to deepen the leadership recruitment process. We shouldn't have a situation where just anybody, simply because you are known politically, will come out, produce poster, say you are contesting for so and so, and maybe using resources probably illegitimately obtained or acquired. And you become a candidate of a party, probably you win the election, and we end up having a situation where, you see, this kind of things, we are talking about the 3 major presidential candidates. One of them is presently the president. It's a very bad advertisement on Nigeria. It doesn't speak well of our country. A situation where the president himself is being accused left, right, and center of forgery. Then the person who was the first runner-up in the election, Atiku Abubakar, is also now being accused by the president. And now the second runner-up also is...
But don't you think that politics is playing a great role in this? Perhaps it's a kind of a retaliation, if you like.
Yeah, of course. For Atiku, I don't want to appear to be partisan, honestly speaking, but I think Atiku's case is not as fundamental as Tinubu's, simply because he has, sworn to an affidavit a very, very long time ago. It's not a recent thing that in his WAEC he used the name this Abubakar Sadiq, something like that, you know, and since then he has changed his name to Atiku Abubakar, you know. So it's like me, Suleiman Obage, changing to, I used to be Suleiman Oba Mohammed, for example, you know, but I later changed it. Actually, it was changed by my governor when he was appointing me as his special advisor. That was, I think, 16 years ago. You know, he put Gaya, you know, and since then I've been using Gaya, Suleiman Oba Gaya. But all my papers up to 2007 were bearing Suleiman Oba Mohammed. So that does not make my papers
But isn't this something that should be tackled even before the election? Can we say that, you know, political parties are allowing this loopholes that lingers even after the election? Because we're supposed to be past this.
You are very right. Apart from the political parties, the security services, especially the DSS, should also define its search when it comes to issues like this. We should never have a situation where after having voted someone like President Tinubu now into power, into office, he is already our president, yet major issues are now being brought to fore about his background. You are completely right. We shouldn't have this kind of situation. It should be done well before, you know, a candidate emerges, before you are even allowed probably to purchase the form.
All right. Sorry, because of time, quickly, I'd like for us to touch on the Japa story. It appears that it's something that's interesting to us. On Daily Times, the lead story there is, you know, reporting how some youths, you know, narrating their ordeal on how the Japa thing is not all glorious and glamorous, the way people paint it to look like, you know, saying things that they will never go back to any job. Any job in Nigeria is better, and they will never go back there. And we escape death by the whiskers, and you know, some of them saying that they return with illness and the rest. You know, just narrating how the kind of difficulty that some Nigerians really experience when they travel outside of the country. Not to say that there are no people who succeed, but then it appears that it's not all, you know.
It's not all glitter that is gold, really. I think that summarizes the Japa situation. Last week I read a story of some people in Canada, Nigerians, taking residence in cemetery because they could no longer afford to pay rent. The rent has skyrocketed beyond their affordability. So they have chosen to, rather than, you know, they have nowhere to sleep. And very soon winter will be setting in Canada, and it's one of the most brutal globally. So this Japa thing anywhere in the world, not just Canada, anywhere, including some of holy places like Saudi Arabia and the rest, is never a good thing to venture into. So I will call upon our youths to try to manage the situation here. And of course, the most fundamental thing is for our leaders to make sure that the environment is made attractive, you know, for our youths and everybody who is a Nigerian, and even people coming in as visitors to our country. Nigeria is made such an attractive country where they can earn a decent living. But a situation where our youths get dehumanized just because the situation here is not conducive should be discouraged. But it can only be discouraged when government provides the enabling environment for them to stay here and be successful here. You know, because of government policies, for example, now small and medium enterprises have, a lot of them have closed down shop. You know, so where does the hope lie? A lot of them will feel that, okay, now that we don't have hope to even earn legitimate livelihood, and we don't want to take up arms against the state like Boko Haram and bandits have done, let me go to another country where I feel my butter will be, my bread will be buttered. You know, unfortunately, a lot of them end up being dehumanized, and they find it difficult to return to Nigeria because in most cases they have sold off their belongings, their cars, their houses, their everything.
I mean, when you think about what it costs to even leave Nigeria to travel abroad, isn't it even enough for you to remain here and do something meaningful? I mean, we have had stories of people who sold houses, they sold cars, just to gather the millions that they need. You know, especially in these days that we have our foreign exchange, you know, not doing very well. When you compared the dollar to the naira in these days, how much would you need to really accumulate or, put together to travel out of the country and all that?
Well, you see, it's almost the same thing as using 20 million naira to purchase a job offer, for example. I'm not saying everybody that has gotten a job in NNPC or CBN does the same thing, but I know there are job racketeers who collect as much as 10, 20 million naira to offer you a job in Central Bank, in NNPC and other so-called lucrative parastatals, where the salary is very good. Most of these countries have a minimum wage that is not less than a million naira. I mean, the countries our youth are running to. So you'll feel that, okay, if you invest 10 million naira in the travel, cost of air ticket, initial cost of maybe renting a place and things like that, and you'll be there for maybe the next 10 years, you'll be making a hell of profit, because eventually after 10 years, you have invested 10 million, your profit will be in the region of maybe 90 million, because what you will gain in 10 years is probably around 100 million or so. That's the calculation, that...
but we've seen that it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't work for everybody. It works only for a few. In Dubai, we've seen so many of our girls getting lured and eventually ending up as prostitutes.
Marriages have been shattered.
Exactly.
When they go outside the country.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Suleiman Ubagayam, CEO, Sky Limit Media Group, editor, and also former Deputy President, Nigerian Guild of Editors. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning, as always.
You are always welcome. Thank you.
All right.